to have this solo show. It's really the second solo show I've had in a gallery, in a community gallery, which I think is one of the best places to show. And I'm just really tickled that you're here. So really important to me. So I'm going to share with you give you some more insight into what this work is about and my process. So here we go. So the title is Visual Meditations, and that is what my art is for me. Absolutely gives me a feeling of serenity, of groundedness, and so forth. And I'm just going to say that some of my work changes. In fact, I actually sometimes modify it. So I'm just going to ask, if you don't mind, because you just came a long distance, just about everybody, we got a couple locals here, if you join me in just an opening meditation. And it's really just taking 3 deep breaths. So I could do it alone, but I'd like to do it with you. So if you can close your eyes, rest your eyes, and take a deep breath, breathe in air, blow out calm. Breathe in air, blow out peace. Breathe in air, and blow out presence. Thank you. So some of you know, let me give you a little background in addition to looking at the art, talking about the art, that I've been an art educator most of my life. I have trained art teachers at Maryland Institute in Baltimore, and I started a graduate program at George Mason. Since retiring, but even before that, I just felt it was so important to help people see more in life through art. And I had a program for 10 years called Summer Vision DC, and I brought art educators and others, retired husbands and whatnot, to Washington, and we went to a minimum of 8 museums in 4 days. And we were all the different museums, and we were constantly drawing, marking and mapping, using a portable studio and a journal. So let me just share. One of my visual metaphors is the artichoke. If you really want to understand art, it's like eating an artichoke. You can't just buy it and take a bite. You have to prepare it. You have to do a lot of different things. And then you boil it, you cut off the stem, take out the claws, whatnot. And if you begin to go with it, you begin to even start to taste a little bit of the flavor of the artichoke. And if you continue to peel the layers, you can get at its essence at the heart. And so you can't do it really quick. And you can really, it's the process that will help you really to understand and kind of own that piece of art. So I'm hoping that we will do some peeling of the artichoke. So I developed something called Visual Fitness for All. I help people gain insight by decoding meaning in works of art, but other things as well, and their creativity by encoding. And it's a process that everybody can have to see more in life through art. So one of the things in that museum program was that people were looking at works of art and understanding it, but also creating at the same time. So connecting the two was important. And there's 3 components of this visual fitness for all. And I used to teach visual literacy, but it's too passive. I'm not interested in just becoming a connoisseur. We live in such a visual world, we really need to be able to decode what we're looking at and encode meaning as well. So the first thing is focus. I'm just going to share a little of this. I know it sounds like theory, but it's kind of my worldview. Focus. Everybody needs focus, and you can do that best with a balanced way of seeing that I'll talk about in a moment. everyone needs access to their creativity to express themselves, and everyone needs a sense of community sharing that vision. And so I use this method called form, theme, context, or FTC, and it's a balanced way of seeing, whereby everyone can look at the form. Those are the things we can see. The specific visual evidence or facts. The theme is what we can discern from what we saw, kind of embedded visual evidence. The context is what we can't see at all, and I call it invisible evidence and authenticity. And I think of these three areas as really important because we tend to overlook at form, but we don't really look at theme and context, and that has a lot of the validity in the work. I also see it connected to body, mind, and spirit. So I've created a palette as a tool, which has criteria, and many of you know I focus a lot on Hope Resides the Great Wave, looking at form, theme, context, and a just quick slide just to see how it can relate, and context. Certainly, in Convenient Truth was about 20 years old, with what we're living in. So, and I create palettes so that people can make connections between. So that's all I really want to say about that, but it's important I share it because what I create are not just pretty things or, that there's a lot more meaning, and I try to get people to enjoy the artichoke. So my method, the method for, that I use for my artwork and in my teaching is something I called marking and mapping. It's really a form of drawing, but if you say drawing, people are going to have a different reaction. So marking and mapping, I call it an accessible practice for encoding ideas and feelings. When we looked at the Great Wave, that was decoding. So there are this is one of my maps of marking and mapping, a lot of influences. But there are two guidelines. This is why it's accessible. First guideline, consider. Don't fill, but consider all your space. That gets people thinking compositionally. I never have students who just have something on the side and they're drawing because they know they have to consider all the space, whether it's this big or the side of a building. Second guideline, if you make a mistake, turn it into a surprise. So we don't even bother with erasers, we just do what artists do sometimes, it's remarking and so forth. But the other thing I want to say about this is it's accessible because everyone can draw all the things they already know how to draw, like words, symbols, initials, numbers, and so forth, as they make meaning. And I've always been a lover of quotes and collected quotes. I'm a quote collector. And I found that, using words really does, using words and expressive marks really does help. This is one from Rachel Naomi Remen. After all these years, I've begun to wonder if the secret of living well is not in having all the answers, but in pursuing unanswerable questions in good company. Thank you. So I'm just going to share a few pieces that are kind of important to me. And I was discerning 9/11, marking and mapping, and I was looking at 4 healing emotions. Anger, what happened that I didn't want to happen. Sadness, what did not happen that I wanted to happen. Fear, what could happen that I do not want to happen. And sorrow, what cannot happen that I want to happen. And I did that in 2001, right after 9/11. I grew up in New York. And during the pandemic, I was marking and mapping my isolation, and I used those healing emotions again, the anger, sadness, but I began to connect what was happening. I wasn't sure how to put it together, and then I actually added virtues. And virtues were my, and I'll talk more about that, but virtues have been my my saving grace. And here's just another one I did. Lost and found. Okay. So one of my positive influences and inspirations is I've been very fortunate to go to a place called Rancho La Puerta in Tecate, Mexico, and it's totally inspirational. It was created in 1940, and I'll share a little more. But I do love this quote. I wanted to read it. Instead of worrying about what you cannot control, shift your focus to what you can create. And I started, the owner, the living owner, she has always come to the ranch every week, and she speaks to the guests on raison d'etre, on different ways of living a healthy, positive life. And I've been painting her words of wisdom for about 20 years. So that's kind of the marking and some of the marking and mapping that's happened. It actually started with a t-shirt because I was painting, I was in a group where everyone was listing their healing thoughts at the end of a 4-day workshop, and I just painted what I was listening to, and the woman's name is Deborah Zake. She found it and she made a t-shirt out of it. But, and it was for the group was Awaken the Spirit. But here are just some others from other years, and it's really helped me, whenever that was, learning about aging by choice, it's really helping me now. So and just a lot of positive things, like thoughts like the sacred first 20 minutes of the day, to not put on the TV, especially now. But anyway, lots of her influences were here. And she is 102. And when she turned 100, they actually made this book called Lessons from a Grasshopper. And there were 100 reflections from a pioneer in wellness. And I actually took one of them, it was number 49, and she had called it Practice the REs. So there's that wisdom. So I began to look at some of the ones that she listed and other ones she didn't, and this is what I came up with. And I gave it to her. So that was pretty special. So more on marking and mapping. That kind of gets to my spirit, my heart. But I taught at Maryland Institute for 14 years, and I was in faculty show, and this was my installation. I should have my picture of my son's here. But anyway, all of a sudden I was on a family trip, and I had a problem with my hands, and it turned out to be carpal tunnel, but I was in Arizona, and they heard I was from Maryland, so it has to be Lyme disease. So anyway, then I had this passion to work with flow and ink, and I started working with different brush pens. And this was my installation on a very big wall in the lobby, and I left a box with markers and papers for people to work on. And so sometimes parents took their kids for Saturday school. They took time. My feeling is, if you really have a good experience in a museum, you want to go back to the studio. You're kind of dying to do it. So, and people left me work, and years later I found out people left work who became students. But anyway, so that was one installation. And part of my point is that I'm very interested in the interaction of the viewer. That's why it's fitness. Literacy is too passive, but fitness, that you go for the artichoke. So this is my second solo show in a community center. But my first was at McLean Project for the Arts, marking and mapping, finding time, space, and place. And I had interactive activities. In fact, at that time, I actually went to the gallery every Thursday for the time the show was up, and we put up a table and people came and worked with me, which was just great fun, and working around the other work. So, okay. So, I found something called the Virtues Project. Actually, my son Larry, who's here, introduced me to a man named Steve Cantor, who had the cards that we're going to see in a minute. And then I got introduced to Dara Feldman, who is a major mover and shaker with her husband, David. And I got connected to these cards, especially, let's see here, in Virtues Matter. So these are what these cards look like, just a few examples. But the Virtues Project is a global project. It's about 35 years old. It's all about bringing positivity, the best character we can be. And these cards I found very, very helpful. And some of the topics, as things were getting more and more negative, I mean, now the commercials we're used to, but I mean, in the beginning, I just couldn't believe the negativity that was just coming off the TV while I'm eating breakfast, you know? Like, how can people do that? But anyway, these cards, and we have a set outside and some more information, but these cards actually just have a description, and you flip it over, and there's a inspirational quote from one of the faiths, from different philosophers and so forth. There's a practice, the I ams, and then there's an affirmation. So I found these things really inspiring. And just a couple of others. Just those messages. The messages were countering, you know, what I was seeing. And those just a few. And that led me to start creating these silk meditations that are in this, mostly in this room. The color's a little off, but anyway, you can kind of see. And, you know, I had been painting silk scarves, but they took forever, and they were hard to finish, and so forth. I just brought a few to show you. But I did find a teacher who, after she was teaching us Tai Chi, she was teaching silk, and I didn't know that I could find stretched silk. And stretched silk they were just wonderful. And you can use this gutta, which is sort of like a defining substance, and then in between you can add color and it goes. So I really fell in love with it. So, but then, you know, then came January 6th, and I started to work on black paper. I was so taken with the fragility of our democracy. I couldn't even believe it. So I started working on black paper, and I actually ended up making virtue maps, that's what I called them, and focused on sharing, you know, what's really important. So I really got connected to the virtues even more. And I just did lots of them. You can see I have the virtue cards with them. And they kind of helped me with my healing, you know, from all of that. It also affected my teaching because I started to teach. I teach for Smithsonian and 92nd Street Y and Yellow Barn and a few other places, mostly online. But I started to connect works like The Great Way with resilience. And really that ends up being art and humanities together. There may be other themes, but I love using the virtues because that's about the gifts of character to make the connections. So these are different ones. I'm still working on new ones. And I love, people really love these cards. This is actually me teaching at Rancho La Puerta, and people do marking and mappings of the virtues. That's what people, you know, everyone knows how to use words, everyone knows, you know, and we do some expressive marks. So that's pretty much what it is. So, I want to say that this show is designed to also engage you And so there are a few, not in this room, but, although you seem very engaged here, but in the other room, I'm just so struck with that space. It is called the Lobby Gallery, but to me, once the work was up, it's a sanctuary, potentially. And probably especially as the community comes in, and it's not, a lot of people, but there are several things that you can do while you're there. You can leave your mark. There's a table with some marks, and people have already done that. Just leaving your mark, and Carly calls it a community project, which it is. It's another way of connecting. So that's one way. Again, thinking about peeling the layers of meaning, like the artichoke. And you can reflect on the virtues, because we have, I have a set of virtue cards. And you can just sit on the couch in the center and enjoy looking at them, maybe look at them and look at some of the art. And then you can respond. There's a notebook for any kinds of responses that you have. So that is my big, invitation for you. Today, with the big crowd, I'm just thrilled that we have George Platt playing the music.
Thank you.
Because it makes it even more of a sanctuary. But I'm hoping that that this gives everyone an opportunity to understand the art, look at the art. I know people are telling me they see animals, they see faces, they see things. What I really love to do is engage others in creating their own. So we can talk about that another time. But any questions? Yeah, I want you to enjoy. So, yeah. Okay. I was just going to say, and Dara and David are here, and they put up access to, that access you can have to Virtues Matter to get at virtues and learn about them.
It's actually the Virtues Card app that they can access
so
for free.
I was going to say, there is an app, and you can, I look at it every day, and I shake it, and one comes up. Better than an 8-ball, yes, no, maybe. And it guides me. It guides me, and I have it right on me. And sometimes it guides me to make my art. So I'm going to say that, I also want to say that I'm just thrilled with all the people who are here today. And that includes my grandson, Shane, who is an amazing artist. And you should have seen the drawing he did yesterday of a tree with a lot of detail. And then he drew all the birds, just like we see them out there. That was just great, Shane. So thank you so much. My son Larry for kind of getting me to the virtues through another person and so forth. And I just also want to, thank Slayton House. Oh my gosh, Sharon and Carly, amazing. Just so helpful in making this happen. We also had Lorraine Imhold, who installed the work, which was great. We have Greg Staley, fantastic photographer. He photographed my work for the other show in 2012. And my friend Claudia, who helped me organize and unload and pack and all that. So I'm just really thrilled. I'm so thrilled with the crowd. But does anyone have any questions? Yes, Sally.
Thank you so much. I love your work and I love being here. And I'm an art therapist, so some of this was resonating for me as an art therapist and how we try to get people to use art to express themselves through color and form. And you use a lot of the circular form, which is to me a mandala.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you draw from that tradition in the art or what that form means to you, I guess.
It's just variation, really, but I do feel wholeness when I work with circles. I'm very drawn to circles and squares, and evenness. So, yeah, thank you. Anybody else? I know I kind of threw a lot. Yes.
Not a question, just an acknowledgement. God bless your creativity, right, and your commitment to really uplift the artist in us all, right? And no barriers, just really being open and flexible with really specific strategies.
Thank you, Dara. Well, thanks for your influence. One thing I do have to say that I forgot to say that during the pandemic, Dara set up virtue circles online. And I am still in 2 of them. Every Tuesday at 4 and every Friday at 4. And in one of the groups, they're almost all Canadians. We were like, we're such sisters from all of this connection. And we do look at the virtues, and you know, the more you look at them, the more you can gain. And to me, it's the hope, because what we've been living through is just, I don't have a word for it. So, I really urge you to take a look, but look at the art, but also look at the cards, and all you have to do is use your phone with the QR code, and you can access, thanks to Dara and David, you can access the app. It's wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else, or? So thank you so much for coming. I never expected a full room. And it's so meaningful to me to have this time, and I just love Wild Lake. It's community in every sense of the word that it can be. So I hope you all come up here, and there's a lot going on, and I want to take a picture of you all.
Take a selfie. Do you want to get in? I'll take a picture.
Well, I just want to get you.